Yeah. Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside, feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly flair, oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist, so rare. Fuji's Philly flair, we're living the care.
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to welcome everybody to Fuji's Philly Flair for a special edition tonight. I want to introduce my co-host, my partner, my new partner here, Miss Traley Hale Ringo, a.k.a. Mama Ringo, mother of number 7 on the Philadelphia Eagles, defensive back, Healy Ringo. Mama Ringo, welcome to the show tonight. We got a pretty... We're touching on some serious stuff, and we want to bring a message hardcore, and we want to get it out there. You know, it's a tough time of year right now for a lot of people. Holidays, not everybody's, a lot of people just, going through.
It's the time of year. It's the time of year that this conversation that we're going to have today deserves attention. It deserves us to bring awareness around it. With it being this time of year, there are going to be, and for sure, higher incident rates. That subject is mental health and suicide.
All right.
I am thankful to be involved in this communication tonight. This is definitely more of a serious podcast. This is the first time that Mike and I, Fuji and I, have collaborated, and the reason why we are starting with this episode. And Fuji has given me the green light to talk about my perspective. Fuji has been beyond impressive when it comes to his personal experience that he has shared with me. He has displayed vulnerability that is impressive. And with my cancer message that you may or may not be aware of, I feel that it takes people who have been through extreme pain and suffering that are willing to be open, transparent, tell the full story, tell the truth so that others can, who are going through it, can relate. So, Mike, I just want to say thank you for all that you've shared with me. You have given me a different insight as to what people deal with when it comes to that. We spoke right before the show, and you advised that you were feeling, just emotional coming on to the show. But that is it's all within reason. And I just want to say that as we're getting started, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yep. So let's introduce our guests.
Okay. If we could introduce Angela, Michelle, and my colleague Ryan. I'd like to thank everybody for coming on, taking your time out, putting this show together within the day, and appreciate your time. And the show is about suicide prevention, mental health awareness, and we want to get this message out. Michelle and Angela, I mean, if you could talk about your experiences, what you've dealt with, as far as, unfortunately, we're all sorry you both lost your sons within the last couple years. Angela, if you could touch on what you've been through.
Yeah, so my son, it started, young for him. He had a lot of loss in his life as far as like his dad not being around, and just always feeling like a void. And there was just little things that I guess, like, as a mother, you're not really sure what you're dealing with. You think maybe it's a tick or whatever, because you never think you have the child that has something going on, or, so I guess there was always like subtle signs at a young age. And as he got older, it was always a question of, does this person like me? I don't think that person likes me. Does it, very like worrisome all the time. Always felt like left out and like not fit in and stuff. And he was a beautiful boy. I mean, absolutely beautiful kid. Um, he had a good life. He played travel ice hockey. He went to private school. He had a good family. He was never lonely. Even on both sides, like he had great like aunts and uncles and grandparents, whatever. Just he just had this complex where he just felt he wasn't good enough and nothing was ever good enough. And it didn't matter what I did, or how hard we tried to let him know that he was loved. And then then it was doctors and therapists and homes, and it's just a long life of trying to make him feel wanted and loved. And sorry.
No,
Okay.
Angela, thank you for being so open and so vulnerable. I couldn't even imagine what it is that you have gone through and the strength that you have to have every single day. You also have taken that strength and you're moving forward with advocacy work for suicide prevention. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had done a celebrity boxing match with Damon Feldman from Celebrity Boxing, and I really appreciate that he did that for me. We really got the word out big time with that, and it was a lot of support, and everybody, the whole family from Celebrity Boxing was amazing. All my fellow boxers and everything, and everybody really came together to show support, and we raised money for men's mental health awareness and all. So that was one thing that we did. And then a friend of mine, the Storm, my friend Larry, we have been working on mental health awareness songs. And so we make these songs about staying strong and try to keep like this positive vibe going, people that really need it. And I was actually able to take, so my son, who I lost at 25, he was like me. We were both, musical and stuff, and he would write songs, and I would tell him, like, when you're feeling like you need to get your feelings out, why don't you write songs about it? So he would write songs, and he would send me little clips of himself singing. So he wrote this chorus to a song, and it's called Cadillacs, and it's on YouTube if anybody wants to check it out. So I was able to take his voice from literally a phone video that he sent me of him singing. And the Storm and we actually created the rest of the song around it. We laid his voice to a track, and we had people come together and help us. And so he actually is on the track. It sounds like he was in the studio with us, and it is the most beautiful song about survival and him talking about just leaving this earth, and so these are the things that we're trying to get out there. These people are trying, they sometimes we don't know what it is that makes that switch go off, at that moment. I wish every day that I could have been there at that moment and to stop him. But I know that he was suffering so bad mentally, and I know that his mind is at ease now. And he's at peace. But it's a very hard road when you're trying to let somebody know that they're loved and they just really aren't understanding it. And so
Everyone listening to you can tell that he had an amazing support system and that he was loved. It's hard in a position. What are the signs that now in hindsight, you mentioned that he had kind of some social isolation with your advocacy work? What do you tell other moms to look for?
so he would tell me, and you know, like he would say, like, "Mom, I don't belong here. I don't feel like I belong here." And I'd say, "No, Vin, like, come on, like we got so much to look forward to. We've got, we're gonna do things, we're gonna take trips, like, and being a single mom, it is very hard without the money and the funds to get the help that you need. Because I couldn't be home with him to help him because I was always working 2 jobs and I had another son that needed me. And I would say, just listen to them, and just any kind of help. There was great help. There was certain people in certain places. I can't say that, he didn't get help. I think just in the end, I just ended up losing the battle, to fight for him. But it's just very hard. You're trying to keep a roof over your head. You're trying to, I couldn't have him in at the end in my house because he was not stable enough. And I had another son in the house that I had to worry about, which people don't understand when you're trying to protect one child or other children. And you have one that, 1 minute he's okay, and then the next minute he's not himself. It's so hard. I did, luckily, like I said, from a family standpoint, I had a lot of help. But again, people can only help so much. So I just say my advice would just be listen, and any kind of help, definitely reach out. There are people that can help, it's really hard. It's hard to really have an answer. And I said this in one of my last interviews. I wish there was a magic book that was just like, okay, this is what you do, but there really is not,
Right.
Everyone is so different, and everyone is going to require different support system, different communication. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so vulnerable.
I know, Michelle, you don't have much time. I mean, if you could share your story of, unfortunately you lost your son 4 years ago, and can you touch on, as you were talking before we came on the air?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Before I do that, I actually want to talk to Angela, if I could.
Sure.
As a mom and understanding, and as a single mom, I will never ever tell anyone that I understand exactly what you're going through, but I empathize because I was a single mom as well, raising 4 children. And the thing is, as a parent, you have to work. The things that you want for your child, you sacrifice self to make sure that your children are taken care of. I do not want you to ever feel like you didn't do enough, because you did.
Right.
And the thing is, both of us unfortunately share traumatic experiences that make us second guess, did I do enough? What could I have done? And I don't want you to carry that weight, because that is a burden that, even for me, losing my son to gun violence, I always wondered, if I ever had to lose my child to suicide, what would that be like? So I don't want you to feel as though that weight is yours alone. There are many people that can judge because they sit in a judgment seat without have going through this journey. And it's not until you step into the shoes of those who are going through this journey that you truly understand that those who point the finger of judgment, there's one finger pointing at you, but there are 3 others pointing back at them. And that's something we may have heard when we were younger. But like I said, you loved your son loved you. And I don't want you to ever feel like you have to carry that weight and that burden for the rest of your life, wondering what you could have done and should have done, because you did more than enough. So I want you to hold your head high and understand that he's no longer here in the physical, but you still have so many wonderful memories that you can cling to. And anyone who doesn't understand your journey because they didn't walk it, that's not for you to have to worry about anymore. Mm-hmm. You keep pressing your foot on the gas and continue living your life and continue being a beacon of hope and speaking out for those who are living your experience and that you can touch. Even, if you feel as though, some people don't understand. It's not for them sometimes to understand. You have to not worry about them, and you keep pressing forward with you and your son and the memories and the legacy that your son has left you for a lifetime. I just wanted to make sure that I shared that with you because that was on my heart to share.
That was so sweet.
I thank you all for the opportunity to be able to come and speak to you. I come with a different perspective as a mom, just like Angela, who you raise your children to the best of your ability. My son, Evan Baylor, I didn't lose him. He was ripped from us and removed from us on June 19th of 2021. He was selling his car to a childhood friend. That childhood friend was the intended target. Some people came on my block, followed that person to our block, shot that person execution style, and then turned the gun on that person's 3-year-old child. My son jumped in front of the baby to shield the baby. The bullets went through the child, through my son's hands into his neck, and killed my son. To this date, 4.5 years later, we have not had justice. There's been no arrest in the case. It is not a cold case, but I've been left with a huge hole in my heart to the point where my heart has been shattered since that date. It has shattered my entire family dynamic. It has changed and upended my life in a way that is beyond human comprehension. To the point that the day after my son was killed, I tried to jump in front of a SEPTA bus and kill myself because I didn't want to live anymore. And this is something that when you have traumatic experiences like this, I can sit and talk to you today about it, but to try to put human words into the amount of searing pain that trauma from losing a child, it's incomprehensible. We can try to explain it, but you really cannot understand it unless you're walking in it. And it's something that you don't want to wish on your worst enemy. Losing your child, because when I've tried to read about things where you talk about if you lose a parent in your child, you become an orphan. If you're married to someone, you become a widow or a widower. There is no word for a parent that loses a child, and especially in such a manner that with us in a tragic manner. It's nothing but the grace of God that I am able to stand each and every day and still try to find some kind of joy and semblance. And as somebody who, I consider myself to be an empath by nature. And I think I've been that way pretty much my whole life. So when people have something that affects them in such a manner, it's almost as if I can sense what they're feeling. There was no way that I could have possibly even imagined when this happened to me, what other people have gone through until it actually happened. And there are many days, and especially during this time of year, the holiday season, even if you don't celebrate the holidays, this time of year tends to be one that people suffer with the absolute most. And my thing is, sometimes we want to judge people that have tried to commit suicide. I have, and it's not something that I go around saying a lot, but I'm not ashamed to admit that this is something that I have walked through personally. But the stigma around mental health, where you have depression and you have other compounding things that may have transpired, it may be hard for somebody who's never walked that walk. But in this day and age, there are many people that mental health has affected and touched in some way, shape, or form. It could be bipolar, it could be schizophrenia, and it's something that we have to really, really take the opportunity and the time to talk about it. We many times, and I know me as an African-American woman, many times in the African-American community, we don't want to talk about what's happening in our house. That's not something you talk about on the outside. You keep that, keep it kind of secret, and you don't talk about it. But we have to be able to talk about it, because not talking about it results in things happening, and people are left with the questions. Well, I don't know what happened and what happened. My first, I'll say head-on collision with suicide was when I was 16 years old. One of my dear friends in high school committed suicide. And that was my first face to face with suicide, and not really understanding, and not really, you know, what really was transpiring, but we knew that she was no longer here. That happened for me in 1987. So that tells you how long ago it's been. And even to this day, when we talk about somebody who seems so vibrant and full of life, how things can change in an instant, it still was kind of a hush hush, like, you know, you don't really talk about it. And I think that we have to get past that. We don't want to talk about it. We have to be able to talk about it. You know, mental health is not something that you can look at somebody and tell what they're going through. You can tell if somebody is an amputee, they may not have an arm, or they may not have a leg. You can tell if somebody has a skin condition. You can tell if somebody is going through some kind of abnormality in a physical sense, but mental health doesn't look like that. You can't look at somebody and say, I can diagnose them by taking a look at them. And I think that when we can't do that, then we kind of try to put people in a box, and you just can't do that. This traumatic experience for me, it comes in waves, really. And like I said, this time of year is difficult. Thanksgiving was my son's favorite holiday. It was last week for me. So for me, out of the past 4 years, this was the first Thanksgiving that I can honestly say that had a good time. The first year was absolutely the absolute worst. The second year, I didn't even answer the phone. The third year, I just wanted to be left alone. And I've had family members that got very upset with me because they're like, well, why can't you just get past it? Those are the people I no longer associate with. Because if you can't understand this journey or have some kind of, you know, just an understanding, you don't have to walk the same shoes that somebody did, but to just have a little more human kindness and understanding. I like for Traley and your, you know, the story that Fuji has shared with me about your cancer journey. I don't have to have cancer to say that I have empathy and an understanding for what your journey has been, even though I'm not walking that journey. And I think sometimes we've gotten so far removed from just being able to have human compassion that we need to get back to that. And there are so many people that have walked the journey of gun violence, that, you know, there's a stigma that people assume, oh, well, if your son died from gun violence, he had to be involved in drugs. He wasn't. And that's troublesome as well, because there's a stigma that people think, you know, it's like almost like people are like, oh, I don't want to be bothered with her because I think that because that happened to her son, then she must be involved in something and he was involved in something. No, my son actually was a junior deacon, a scholar athlete, graduated in the top 1/3 of his class, had 7 scholarships and went to Penn State University, was captain of the football team. You know, like I could go on and on, had his own catering business and worked for a demolition company, which was one of the largest ones on the East Coast. So to say that, you know, we have a box that we try to put people in to make it seem like, oh, we put them in a box and that's okay. It's not. And for me, just trying to help people to understand that you cannot continue to put people in a box, that when you lose someone, that's not just a number. My son was not just the 257th murder in 2021. My son's name was Evan Marquise Baylor, and leaves behind a family that loved and cared about him and still does to this day. So it pains me and it hurts, but I had to let some people go. Some of those family and some of those were friends, and realizing that the people were not really friends if they were saying some of the things they did. But trying to surround myself with positivity is what I've been able to do to try to get through this. And there are days that even with surrounding myself with positivity, it's still very difficult. It's still, for me, 4 years later, like you, Angela, it's still 4 years. It feels like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you feel like you are living in a nightmare that you can't wake up from. you know how when we're little, you're not supposed to really watch the scary movies, but we're living in a scary movie that we can't wait. Like I can't turn this off like a television set. This is my reality. This is my everyday. That instead of my son walking through the door or me being able to pick up the phone, I have to look at pictures and live through memories and pray that as I get older, that my mind stays right, that I still remember that. So those are the things that can, that can cause waves of depression. Going through therapy, trying to ask God the why. Like, why did this happen? Like, we're, try to be a good family and teaching them about being responsible and doing everything. And he did everything that he was supposed to do. How does this happen? Why does this happen? We don't understand why these things happen. So for me, left with a lot of whys, left with a lot of hows, being angry at God, being angry at people for not understanding my particular journey. But then as I've, moved along this way and along this journey, understanding that it may not be meant for everybody to understand this walk, and just doing my best to keep myself in a positive mindset, and when I'm not in a positive mindset, trying to find my ways to make sure that I do self-care, and to also remember that I have 3 additional children who are adult children who have also suffered tremendously because we're an extremely tight-knit family. So making sure that I not only say it for them, but when I need to remove myself, when I know that I'm not going to be good for anybody else, making sure that I'm better to myself. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah. And Michelle, like you said, the judgment thing, and even with like the, mental health and suicide, a lot of people with the mental health, a lot of them do, they do dabble in like, drug use and stuff like that. That kind of coincides and stuff. And, my son would, relapse and then go back to the doctor and get on regular meds and then relapse. And then, so it was just like a vicious cycle. And like I said, and he kept telling me, I want to just feel normal. Like, I just want to feel normal. And he didn't like the meds from the doctors. And then he would try to self-medicate. And then, and people don't understand automatically, like you said, it's like, oh, well, he's just another druggie gone, whatever. But I'm like, no. This kid had a problem. He was beautiful, beautiful soul, would have given you the shirt off his back, worked his butt off, was so anything. And, and same thing though, it's like, what, because that was how he was trying to fix himself. That's, that doesn't make him a bad person.
Absolutely not. You're right. You're right.
He was struggling to try to fix himself. And because he couldn't, he ended it. That was his end,
and I'm so glad, Angela, you mentioned that, because like I had mentioned, where we can look at somebody's physical abnormality and see, we don't know. There's so many things about mental health that we still are in a gray area about, that people don't understand, because there's the stigma, and it's about breaking. There are many things we talk about, breaking the stigma about mental health awareness. And then once we get past people's perception of what they think versus what we know, that will help to break down the barriers of what people perceive mental health as. There are many times it could be a chemical imbalance. That's not his fault, but there's some people that want to judge him for that. But the fact that he was trying to, to bring, some sense of normalcy in his own life, some people don't understand that. And the thing is, for those people who don't understand, there's a thing called a book. There's a thing called a library, and there's a thing called Google. People need to really take the opportunity, instead of, sometimes we have what I call the social media psychiatrists and physicians and those who are that play the judgment game. Instead of you getting onto social media and trying to tell people what to do and how to feel, then maybe they need to educate themselves with the right types of education, to be able to have a better understanding. And that's what I talk about, just the human kindness and the compassion is lacking. And that's what needs to change. So, my heart truly goes out to you. I don't even say when I hear somebody has transitioned, and I use my words carefully. When someone has transitioned, I don't say sorry for your loss, because that feels so empty and void. I really say, like I honor the legacy of your loved one. And I think that has so much more meaning, because it puts that person is not just no longer here in the physical, but that they are still a part of your family, a part of your lineage, a part of your DNA. And that's so meaningful. And I think that, we're so quick to, okay, well, move on to the next thing. Like, we can't move on to the next thing, because it's like,
Right.
I attribute it, those little the snow globes that we have from back in the day, where you shake it up and everything is moving all around, but you're planted. It's literally like you feel like you're stuck and the world is swirling around you and you can't unstuck. We can't get unstuck.
Right.
And then when the dust settles, everybody else is moved on. Their little pieces of snowflakes are moved on. We can't.
Right.
Like that day, I feel like everything ended for me too. And I'm sure you feel the same way. Like that day, life ended, even though you're still going on, because that's what, we have other children, we have other things that need us. And, but in our brains, that was it. That was like the end.
It's almost like we operate on autopilot, and that's one of the things. Therapy has been life-changing for me. I think if I had not gone through therapy and continue to go through therapy, I probably and honestly would probably not be here anymore, or be in a state such a state that I don't even know if I would be able to speak. But it's almost like you're on autopilot, or you try to make yourself busy to a point where you don't try to think about what has transpired. And if that's a way, that's a coping mechanism. And I even find that sometimes when you talk to those who have talked about committing suicide, that staying busy, keep it, and that's why people are like, I didn't see the signs. I didn't know the signs, because it's busyness. And you're like, I want to feel normal. I don't want to feel like this. I got to keep going. I got to keep doing this. Or it's a I attribute it to a mask. You know what I mean? Like Halloween, you wear a mask on and you can take it off. I literally feel like I feel like many days I will have to wear a mask to try to shield sometimes how we really feel, because if you don't have a lot of people going through that, you almost feel like there's not very many people that you can talk to that have really been through this, that really have an understanding. And then when that's why you try to align yourself with people who have been through situations like this in order to be able to press forward and move forward. And sometimes you may not be able to press forward and move forward. I've aligned myself and met women who have all lost their children to gun violence. And they're some of the strongest people I've ever met. But we all have our extremely, extremely vulnerable days.
Yeah.
And not to interrupt everybody, we do have some comments coming in. We have the Pursued Happiness 6358 saying Angie would love one of my colleagues on one of my other shows, Alan Andrew Cavage, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I don't know if anybody wants.
I want to throw out there, as we've got the community tapping in, that we actually talked about even making this a part one, and including others that are listening within ear's reach that want to chime in and want to talk about their personal experience. I am just in awe. Both of you ladies are so impressive. Your strength. I think I'm strong sometimes because of cancer, but I've been a single mom. I cannot begin to relate to what you two have been through and the strength. And it is just so commendable, your position and you're sharing. This is what other moms need to hear. This is what I need to hear. I'm just sitting here listening, like I'm just honored to be in this room. You mentioned, Michelle, that you're an empath, and I resonate with that. So when it comes to feeling and grief, you can try to avoid it. You can try to deal with it later. It's going to show up when it wants to. It's going to show up as often as it wants to, and it's not going to ask any questions. It's just it is a mask that you have to wear. And I can't imagine having to wear that mask and walk around like you're okay. And that's what you ladies are doing every day.
Thank
My gosh.
you a lot.
Mhm.
Wanted to touch on just to get these comments out there to, so everybody hears them. Alan, I lost my uncle to suicide, and
Sorry.
I mean, pursuit of happiness, your strength, and sharing this is incredible. I know your beautiful boy would be so proud of the love and courage you're showing today and always. We love you. CC, Andrew Cabbage, Alan's wife, just had a speaker come to my school today, raising awareness to young people after losing his own son. Keep sharing your stories.
Wow.
And our last comment right now is Mike Papernick Jr. I lost my brother a couple years back and lost a really good friend to suicide.
Mm.
It's really, I can't believe, honestly, I mean, when you think of how, even recently, I mean, how many just football players we lost, how many people you think like, oh, like my son, for instance, like you were saying, Michelle, like he was the happiest boy in the room. Nobody ever knew anything was wrong. He was so nice. I mean, he was so funny. He was so upbeat. He was living his life. And honestly, those moments that he would, say things to me that he was, didn't feel like he belonged here, blah, blah. Those were small moments. But on the bigger part, like he was, for the most part, he was happy, like he was always, Mom, I love you. You're the best. You're so cool, blah, blah. He was my best friend. And,
Wow.
people that knew him would be like, what? Like Vin, he's always the center of attention, and, so we think of all these actors and stuff like that. And, you think, oh, they've got everything. Like, how, they're so funny. They're so outgoing. And, and so that just goes to show you just don't really know what's going on in somebody's head.
Yeah.
And, it just, my big thing now is, check on your loved ones, whether you think they're fine, whether, and things that make me feel better personally are like doing even just one small thing of kindness a day, making somebody's day, giving them that one laugh, that one smile. And I say to myself, maybe I just saved their life. You might have just saved somebody's life just from being nice to somebody and talking to them at the store, or helping somebody get something off the shelf, or, that one little act of kindness might have just changed their whole world that day. And, I live like that now. And I was telling Mike Fuji the other day that, when this thing happens to you, when things this tragic happen to us, we are no longer who we used to be. We never go back to that person. I will never be that Angela ever again. We see things through a totally different lens. It has totally changed. And, every small moment, every little thing, we just, we make it matter that much more. Because
Absolutely.
we're basically holding on by a thread. So you just see things differently, and the things that used to matter, the things that used to get me upset, angry, I'm like, it's all gone. Like it just really, really makes you do like a 360. So, but I would say that, for people, like you said, Michelle, we need the kindness out there. Where's the love? Where's the, helping somebody? Because like I said, it might be that one little act of kindness. If I could just go on and help somebody else, I feel good, knowing that maybe I did change somebody's day. And my son said to me in a conversation, like literally right before he passed, Mom, I just want to help other people like me. I just, I want to be like a counselor or something. He's like, I know I got to get better first, and then I can help others. And I said, yeah, Vin, my son's name was Vincent DeStefano. And I said, yeah, Vin. I said, you know what? I said, I'll help you. I said, when you get better and you're ready, I said, we'll help people together. And I feel it's my mission now, as you know, I told him that, and I will carry it out, and I promised him that. And so that's my plan in life, is to follow through with our mission, you know.
Yeah,
I
sometimes we don't understand. I'm sorry, I didn't want to chime in. Sorry, on like that, but
no go.
sometimes the mission that we're given in this lifetime, and we think that we have one thing that we're chartered to do, but there are things that transpire in our lives that cause us to have to go and shift in a totally different direction. And even though Vin is your guardian angel for sure, um, this is a way for you to still help and continue um, the mission that he carried forward. And it's not in the way that you may have wanted it to be, but I guarantee you're going to touch and continue to touch so many people and so many lives through what you've experienced. And as we call them, as co-survivors of trauma, you as a co-survivor have such a compelling voice and a compelling story to help other people. You touched on something where you talked about how things that we thought mattered don't matter, the small things. I can literally attest to that, because the things that may have made us upset or things we focused on, those small things really don't matter anymore in the grand scheme of things. When you think about the hands of time, no one knows the day nor the hour when each of us have that dash where you have like the dash in between your birth date and your death date. You don't know when the other number on that dash is going to come up for you. So the thing is to live life and treat people with respect, treat people with kindness. You don't know if you are the only Bible or good thing that somebody sees, but if you treat others with respect and kindness and dignity and with integrity, those blessings will come back to you, even in the midst of trauma, even in the midst of heartache. I am a firm believer that living my life in a different way from this point forward means so much. And if it just means like, just, saying hello there, you know what I mean? Like, you just never know when somebody's at that tipping point, what can cause them to go over. And you
Right.
may be the person that causes them not to go over and to be able to come back.
Exactly.
I was going to talk about a situation that I can relate to. I talked to Angela about this. Traley, I believe I did tell you, Michelle.
Mm.
Ryan, I was 16 years old and I attempted suicide. And then, Traley encouraged me to do this show together as our first episode, and just to get the message out there, and just like you're both advocates of suicidal awareness, mental health awareness, and I'm not going to say what I did, but I did attempt, like I said, suicide at 16, which, like you said, Michelle, it's something you don't really talk about to people, but if there's any way I could help anybody, if you could just help change one person's life and make a difference, that it's just not out there enough. And wanted to touch on the Ryan. I mean, Ryan, I know Ryan personally. I know he went through some stuff. Ryan, if you feel like talking about it.
Well, I mean, the one thing I'll say is that at the end of one of my shows, I always end it with practice compassion, practice empathy, hug somebody every once in a while. You might make their day. I also say, if somebody is struggling, for God's sakes, ask questions, inquire. You're never going to know what's wrong unless you ask questions, and tell somebody you love them, because you might not know when that's the last opportunity you're going to tell them.
Yeah.
So I'll start off with that. Secondly, on my mom's side of the family, there is mental disease, mental issues. My grandmother on my mother's side, she wound up with Alzheimer's. My mother, even though she wouldn't admit it, was bipolar. She was very up and down. One minute she was telling me I was the worst thing since this, and then the next day she was buying me sneakers. So,
Wow.
I was having to deal with that. Really, what where really went downhill for me was, all my life I've tried to prove myself, like to everybody. I'm good enough for this. Basketball, I was told that you weren't good enough. Well, I had to prove myself. Football, same thing. A job, same thing. Where you're always told you're not good enough. And I'll pull up the quote here, the quote from Pretty Woman when Julia Roberts says, people put you down enough, you start to believe it. The bad stuff is easier to believe. You ever notice that? And that's the point that I got to. People keep saying it and they start hammering it like they hammer it into your head. You start to believe it. I was living in Florida. I'll try and condense this as much as I can. If I lose it a little bit and I start to cry, I
Let
never
it
really
out.
talk about it. So, came home from Florida. Mother and father were basically what we didn't know at the time. Uh, my father was ill, unbeknownst to him. He went in for open heart surgery, never recovered. And then 7 months later, my mother died. She slowly killed herself with pills and XYZ. She had everybody fooled. Um, so losing both parents within 7 months, going through chronic stuff the way that I do, illness wise, was not helping. Medicine wasn't helping. None of it was helping. So I started to self medicate. I started drinking heavily. I started taking Xanax and Ambien to help me sleep. Well, it got to the point where my body got used to it. It wasn't numbing the pain. It wasn't dulling the pain. Um, and it just got to the point where 4 years ago, I was going to cash it in. I was ready, but I sought help. I went for help for the alcohol abuse. Both my grandfathers were alcoholics. Um, but it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping. Basically, what they were doing in therapy and treatment was not working. There were times where I was up for 60, 65 hours at a time. I would take myself to the emergency room. Just give me something to sleep. Just let me sleep for 8 hours. I'll be fine. I'd sleep for 8 hours. It was right back to the same thing. Slowly and slowly, the hamster was getting out of control in my head. It just kept turning. 1,000 different things in my head. I was getting depressed, much like when Angela was saying her son said to her, "I don't belong here." That's the point that I was getting to. I felt like I was transported from the 1930s and 40s. I must have done something, and this was my punishment being put in this particular time frame. Those were the types of things that were going through my head. And then at one point, when I was going through treatment and I wasn't sleeping, I was going to end it. I was done. I was finished. And most of the times going through treatment, I found out that people who want to take their own life, they really don't want to take their own life. They want the pain to stop. They just want it to end because nothing in this life is working. Nothing is making me better. It's not making the pain stop. It's not making my physical pain go away. It's not making my mental pain go away. And when the combination of all these things is going on, you just if I just fall asleep and don't wake up, so be it. If I wake up, great. And I got to that point. I was in treatment. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't know who I was anymore. I wasn't thinking straight, and I was going to end it. I was just going to leave the house, go find a street bench somewhere, grab a 6-pack, take the pills. If I wake up, great. If I don't, whatever. But before I did that, I went to the house manager at the time and I said, if you don't take these pills away from me and get me to the hospital for treatment, I'm done. I'm just letting you know. He drove me to treatment. I was in treatment for 4 or 5 days. They put me on the right meds. A godsend. I don't want to take drugs, but if it's going to slow this down and it's going to help me, then so be it. They put me on the right kind of meds. Even to this day, now I sleep. I sleep 6, 7, 8 hours a day, which is a godsend for me. But every so often, something will happen, and I'll be like, you know what? I can't win. I don't know what else to do. Every so often, those thoughts will still creep in. What am I doing? What's going on? But because I was self medicating, it was clouding my judgment even further. Now that I've gotten that out of my life, and something comes my way, I'll say solutions. What are the solutions? Before it was like, screw this, I'm just going to drink myself into oblivion and forget about it for the night. No. Now, when stuff happens, I'm like, what are the solutions? Solutions, solutions. Instead of freaking out about the problems, I find solutions. So today, I still deal with a lot of physical stuff, a lot of chronic stuff that I'm not going to talk about because that's just me, me and me. That's the battle that I go through with myself on a daily basis. But again, when I hear Michelle's story and Angela's story, I've heard Traley's story before about going through cancer. Again, and I'll just end it with this: if people are giving you subtle hints about whatever, just like Angela said, I don't belong here. That's a subtle hint. Pick up on them. Listen. That's the thing that I would inquire to everybody the most. Listen. Don't judge. Don't offer opinions. Don't offer anything. Just sit there with your eyes focused and your ears open and listen to what they're telling you. And maybe you'll be saved. That's the other thing I say. If you listen and you inquire and you ask questions, you might not just be saving a life, you might be saving multiple lives. So I'll end it with that. I appreciate Traley. I appreciate Fuji. Michelle, thanks for your story. Angela, thanks for your story because it relates. But the one thing that people don't do, oh, he's just joking around. She's just joking around. They'll get over it. She'll get over it. And then they just poo-poo it under the rug. That's the wrong thing to do. And then, I should have listened, or I should have picked up on this. Well, it's too late now. People don't listen anymore. They don't practice compassion. They don't practice empathy. Well, that's their problem. My father always used to say, unless it's happening in someone's backyard, they don't care. Unless it's happening in their backyard. Then all of a sudden they care. And that's what aggravates me the most. People need to listen. It's a lost art. Compassion is a lost art. Empathy is a lost art. Caring about people is a lost art in today's day and age. And it aggravates me and sickens me when I hear Angela's story, Michelle's story, Traley's story. And I'll just leave it at that. Just people, for God's sakes, compassion, empathy, and listen.
All right. Well said, Brian.
Excellent. I agree. And Michelle, you mentioned that you are an empath, so you can understand when it comes. If people would move with Christ consciousness and just care about someone that has a sign outside of the grocery store that needs some food, get them something to eat, pay it forward. It will make you feel good. It will come back to you. If everyone cared about the next person, this world would be a different place. And that's just what it takes. It takes people that come to that understanding, but people are just selfish. People are people and aren't worried about the next person and just concerned about themselves, and they're just existing. I personally feel as though if I'm not in a position where I'm able to help others, teach, educate, help save a life, even on the background. This is a subject that I'm not up close and personal with, but I'm thankful to be here. And if this is my contribution towards communicating this, then I'm thankful. But if everyone had that mindset and cared about the next person and paid it forward, this world would be a different place. It's sad. We do not take mental health seriously. I believe that we don't think it's as serious as it is, and it's frowned upon and it's embarrassing. And especially within the Black community, it's you can relate. We don't want to highlight that we're having a problem and that it could lead here. It's just something that it's easier to put on the back burner and avoid and ignore until it creeps up on you, and then here we are.
And the saddest part, Traley, when you think about that, first, Ryan, like, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and your transparency, because there are so many people that have walked the same journey and are not comfortable with expressing it. And the fact that you've expressed it, you let people know that they're not alone. And
And
that, I
men.
think that many people think that they're alone in
They're
this
not.
journey, and they're not. There are so many more people that can identify. It doesn't mean that they have to, they may not be ready to speak about it, but they can identify. And if even identify and saying, you know what, I know that I'm not alone. That's half the battle, because you do feel isolated. You do feel like you can't speak to people. You do feel like it's embarrassing and frustrating, and it's frustrating when you have people in your circle that say, oh, you could just get over it. Oh, she just acting crazy, or she just being dramatic. That makes you feel like, okay, well, that doesn't make you feel better. It makes you feel worse.
Exactly.
Or
I mean,
if you're a
it's
male,
not
you're saying,
helpful.
you're saying
if
without
you're a
saying you're
male, what do they
overreacting.
say? Males say to other males, "Suck it up, man up."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's why the
Exactly.
incidence of men dealing with it is higher, because they're told, "Oh, you're acting like a sissy."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cry for help.
Right.
I can't say how many times that I was called over dramatic, or she just needs to get over it. Oh, I've heard this. I'm so tired of hearing her talking about her son. And those are the people that's the last
Wow.
time that we
Oh,
have communicated,
well,
and
Michelle,
they have been blocked.
You and I talked. We were talking for a while today when I asked you to come on, and again, I like to thank you for coming on and putting the word out of what you went through. I mean, I can relate to you with trying to commit suicide and everything, and you told me like what your plans were for Thanksgiving and like
Mm-hmm.
what you're going through right now, and just with
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
I also had to
appreciate it.
learn from what Angela was saying. I also had to learn that my circuit board up here isn't like what we call normies or normal people. This
Mm-hmm.
circuit board up here has a breaker over here that goes every once in a while, or over here that goes every once.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
brain does not function like a normal brain. Whether that's hereditary or
Mm-hmm.
my own doing, it's probably more hereditary than anything. But I need certain medications to put the circuit board in order, because
Yeah.
if I didn't have that to put it in order, I'd be right back to doing the same thing as I was before, and I can never allow that to happen again.
Yeah, and Ryan, that so the sad part is, and part of my son's struggle was between the ages of like, and they'll even tell you on those commercials, 18 to 25, especially for men, those medications cause more suicidal effects.
Right.
I will
Mhm.
touch on the
Mhm.
like you were saying, Michelle and Traley, about like the empathy and stuff. I will say we do have a lot of good healthcare workers, but there were numerous people. I spent so much time on the phone, like arguing with psych nurses, and and trying to get somebody to listen and help. And again, it wasn't them that was affected. So my son was just another number. Get him on the floor, throw him some meds. But I'm like, but is anybody monitoring these meds? Like, you can't just have a boy stage on these meds. There's suicidal effects, and like like you guys were saying, it's just, does anybody really care? Like, you start to think like, and again, the single mom thing comes up. I'm doing what I can, but at the same time, I'm juggling all of these other things in life, trying not to be on the street myself.
Yeah.
And, and it's such a hard thing to try to help, and we do need more people in healthcare with, that care. It can't be, I'm just here to do my job today. Here you go. Oh, he's fine. No, he's not fine. Well, he looks fine. He's not fine. I argued with this one woman, like I couldn't even tell you. I said, he is not okay. If you were listening to the things he was just telling me, he is not okay. So like you were saying, Ryan, yeah, you want them to speak out, you want people to listen, but then when you try to get them help, you need the healthcare people to listen, and to understand these meds. Do you really understand what they're doing? Like, they need to be monitored. You can't just give these people meds and then go, okay, because he was feeling worse on the meds. So then he was self-medicating. So it was like, such a tug of war on everything. And I was so exhausted and drained mentally, physically, and I, and that's just the way it goes. We just need more people that really can care about this and are genuine.
And I'll
Yeah.
expand on a little bit further. They first had me on trazodone and Seroquel together.
Mhm.
It messed me up even worse than what I was in there
Wow.
with. And I
Right.
kept trying to tell them, like I was having trouble speaking, like the words were there, the thoughts were there, but I couldn't get
Right.
them out.
Mm.
And it wasn't until the last time I was in treatment, before I was going to do something, that they said, no, 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 no. Trazodone, Seroquel, no, not good. So then they tried me on a different combination, and it's worked ever since. And thank God. But I was fortunate enough to go in that last time where they found the right combination that works for me. You're right. When you go in and they got you on X, Y, and Z, and they say, well, he's doing better. Well, I would see people when I would check myself in, they'd have them on the same thing. They were comatose. They couldn't say a word. They isolated. They didn't participate in anything. It just made them worse. You're right. In the healthcare industry, healthcare workers, what do they do now, Angela? What do they do, Michelle, Traley, and Fuji? You go to see your primary care physician about something. What's the first thing they do? I got something for you. Take this for 3 weeks. If it doesn't work, come back.
And the
They're
thing
not
is,
looking
it's
for a
sad.
permanent solution. They're looking for a band-aid.
Yeah. And
Doctors
the
don't
thing-
listen anymore.
It's a shame, because for the ones that do listen, that do want to make a difference, it's there's so many layers. And like I said, from my background, from working in healthcare in 27 years, there's so many layers of so many different things that I've seen. And it's like, I have worked for the pharmaceutical industry, I have worked in hospitals, I have worked in insurance companies, and everybody, there's so many different pieces and components. So we think sometimes for treating people, it's a one size fits all situation, and it is absolutely not. There are healthcare workers that do care, but
Yeah.
are you more concerned about people who care, or are you more concerned about filling a position that's open? And the thing is, filling the position that's open with somebody who really is going to listen and have active listening is much more important. I would much rather have somebody that's going to have active listening and say, you know what? I learned that those two don't really mix. So let me talk to the doctor about this, this, and this. And the thing is, we're in a microwave society where everything has to be quick, 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 boom, 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 put it in, quick, 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 move to the next thing, move to the next thing. We have to get back to that compassion and to the active listening, because if you don't listen, that could be detrimental and deadly to someone.
Right.
And you have to, and that's like I said, there's so much not known about mental health. We don't have enough mental health treatment facilities. I was blessed to be able to work at Bryn Mawr Hospital, where they have like a state-of-the-art facility, but the problem is it's limited in its capacity and the need is so much greater. So what are healthcare organizations doing to make sure the need is greater? Like, are we more concerned about treating people with mental health and with physical health, or are we going to build more prisons? Like, there's so much that I could say about all of this. Like, finding out where the money needs to go and where the need is the greatest should be the end result. And unfortunately, we find that does not happen. It's not something that we can fix, of course, on this call, but we can have the conversations to advance the needle forward. What are we doing as advocates as far as talking to people who are legislators? I'm fortunate to be a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, which is the largest advocacy organization for women of color in the United States. And one of the things in healthcare is, okay, what are you doing, not just for women of color and girls of color, but what are you doing for people in general when it comes to, mental health awareness and, and suicide and domestic violence and food insecurity and, equal pay for women? What are you doing? And the thing is, if you can't talk to the right people, for me, if I can't talk to you on the city level, I'm going to move to the state level. And if I can't talk to the state level, I'm going to move to the federal level. I'm going to put something out to somebody until you're going to listen. That's why in the gun violence space, if you're not going to listen, somebody will listen. And unfortunately, you don't want something to happen to someone in the space. Like, we try to protect people from having to go through this, but sometimes it may take for somebody at a legislative, in a legislative capacity to have to unfortunately experience what we experience for people to really take it seriously. Right. And you don't want that to happen, but sometimes that's what has to happen.
Tralee, I know we talked about some questions that we wanted to dive into.
Yeah, let's pull up those questions. And also I wanted to point out regarding healthcare workers that are this is not only their job, but you're supposed to have compassion. If you have dedicated yourself to the healthcare industry, it's your job to care about people. Mike, when we called last night, we had intentions on, we tossed around the idea of having a medical professional that works, that's on the other line of 988 when you call for help. Right. We called, who did we call? Penn? We called a couple numbers.
Called Penn, we called Friends Hospital, we called.
And we were interested in a medical professional who is on that end, that speaks with multiple people in this position. And just in us expressing our interest over the phone regarding coming on our podcast for an hour to talk about their experience, we got hung up on.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Yep.
I was just dumb. I couldn't believe
mortified.
I couldn't believe it.
Like,
wow.
Talk about empathy and not having compassion.
They said we're not in. Empathy. Yeah, we told them about our podcast, told them that that we're going to talk about mental health and suicide prevention, and that facility that we asked was Penn, that hung up on us, and they are local. We thought that we'd have more luck with someone, an organization that's local than we'd have with 988 that's nationwide. But
so now you know who not to call.
Yeah.
Exactly. And who move on to, and that's unfortunate. Because if they're hanging up on you for asking just for somebody to come on and to have their level of expertise, what are they doing as far as their patient population?
Who else are they hanging up on?
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not taking calls.
Sad.
Yeah.
Very sad.
What Fuji, you have those questions that we talked about.
The ones I sent you or the ones you sent me? Or both? The ones I have
whichever one looks like the most interesting.
Ones I have here were one. What are the warning signs of someone considering suicide? And I know Ryan touched on that a little bit earlier, and Michelle did.
Yeah, like I said, with my experience, it's a lot of just shutting oneself out from others, and really, that's talking. He talked about it. Again, I thought, I did what I thought, I could do for him as far as help. But yeah, a lot of depression, sometimes acting out, like anger issues, stuff like that are all warning signs and stuff.
Social isolation.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the ones you sent me, Tralee, was what Ryan talked about. Was wait, hold on. Sleeping too much or sleeping too little or too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind
I was just about to say
depression.
that.
Yeah. Depression.
Because if you're dealing with depression, you don't want
that leads to substance abuse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I could, I have anxiety issues and, being over anxious, panic attacks, that could all lead to that's just my personal experiences.
Yeah.
There's another one you sent to me, Tralee, about withdrawing or feeling isolated.
Yep.
Yeah.
One I think we really didn't talk about, showing rage are talking about seeking revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's another one definitely displaying extreme mood swings.
Right. Yeah. And that's with like the anger and the bipolar
Right.
and stuff like that. So, and I mean, you
Yeah.
see in like these, these kids that go up and like shoot up a school, but then kill themselves. I mean, that's just all part of like the anger.
Right.
And obviously these kids were going through
Revenge.
the thing. Yep. The revenge, but then taking themselves out and, so yeah.
I even say like hopelessness, like extreme hopelessness, like everything is wrong, nothing is going right, and feeling like there is no hope and things getting better. Like, like maybe some people have had like a string of bad luck where things just seem to be like a pile on method, and they really feel like they're so buried that there is no way of escape.
Well, another thing is too, and it's talked about too, is like, kids getting bullied in school. And,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
That's
a
a
big
big
one.
one.
Yeah. Mhm.
it's
And
like,
I've said,
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say in school, Fuji, we talked about it because you had
Right.
your experience when you were 16, and
Right.
we mentioned now in hindsight, that stress level of a 16-year-old that made that decision was minuscule. Now in
Right.
hindsight, we probably all wish we could have that level of stress.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
So
Like,
yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
No, you're right.
And you make a radical decision because you just don't see a way out. And what it comes down to is caring for others, having a support system, checking on each other, being observant as to what these signs are. And again, if everyone cared about the next person like they cared about themselves and inquired, this world would be a different place and more people would be here.
100%.
And so we're
no, I was going to say, just remember when we were growing up, they always had a nurse. The elementary school, at the middle school, at the high school. Why can't they come up with a program where they have an on-site psychologist where people can go and talk to them on site, whether it's elementary school, middle school, high school, wherever.
Right.
Just have somebody on site that they could go talk to.
I
But
think
again,
yes.
go ahead. Dave.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, not to cut you off, but I think that a lot of places actually, because it's so bad right now, like
Right.
we just had a girl last year, a senior, take her life over like a boyfriend and embarrassment, and so sad. And I'm so sorry for that family. But yeah, I think now the schools and even a lot of work, like corporate places and stuff, they're incorporating that in their like HR whole kind of thing, like where you have therapists,
Right.
that you can go to, because it's so common now, the whole mental health and suicide. So yeah, I was happy to see that some of the companies are implementing that in their staff. So
Yeah, they're called EAP programs, employee assistance programs, where you're able to get free counseling. That you start to see it implemented more and more. I think it's a start, but I don't even think it's enough. Like you might only have 5 sessions, but there are people who may need more. There are, you have that, and every little bit helps. I know if you are in the city of Philadelphia, if you are a co-survivor of trauma, you are eligible to get free counseling services. And that's extremely important. Through like the DA's office, through there are a couple of different organizations, the Anti-Violence Partnership. So, and then there's also DBH-IDS, which is the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, that they have a huge number of programs and services available. But I've even spoken to them and said, why do people have to come search you out? We put it on the onus on people who are hurting. Oh, like I wasn't thinking about after my son was murdered. Oh, let me stop and go online and try to search.
Right.
Like at that point, there are referrals that you get as an organization. You should be reaching out to families who because you get the statistics, reaching out to families and saying, this is what we have available. Whether somebody takes it or not, you're offering the assistance and letting people know that it's available. It shouldn't be that 3 years later, I find out that we had all these trauma services. Well, where was somebody back in 2021 when that happened? Oh, we don't go out to people. We have them search us out. Well, how do people know to search you out if they don't even know whether it exists?
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
I have to ask you real quick, Fuge. You have a son that plays in the National Football League. We all know the pressures of athletes, whether it's in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. You're a professional athlete. How does he deal with the pressures of being in the NFL?
Me, I'm
Keely,
assuming.
yeah.
Talking to you, yeah.
Keely, Keely is we come from a very open background where we've talked about absolutely everything. My son has not communicated to me that he's having issues specifically. Everybody knows he fought for a DB position, and it ended up on special teams. I'm sure that was stressful. All these boys in the NFL, young man in the NFL, were the man in high school and then going into college. So it's without a doubt, I'm sure, mentally and psychologically difficult to have always been the man and now come to the NFL and fight for your position. Um, and then just normal life. I think that my son is in a good place. Again, we've always been really open. I've my conversations with my son has consisted of, are you okay? What are you dealing with? Do you need to talk? Should I get somebody for you to talk to? Um, are you gay? Are you interested? Just everything, just completely open and transparent and vulnerable. So that's not every child's position.
Right.
And so sometimes they have to go against it's sad. Kids are products of their environment. And
Right.
so they don't necessarily know what they don't know. And if they're at home and not being nurtured correctly and feeling as though they can't be open and vulnerable just to say to their parent that this is what I've got going on and this is what I'm struggling with in school or sports, academics, girlfriend, etc. Um, kids have to know that they have love and that they can be fully themselves at
Right.
home and with their circle. So I think that my son has done an exceptional job with the amount of stress that he's been under. And if he is not doing as well as I think he is, then he's doing a dynamic job of suppressing it, which is exactly what we were talking about. Men have to do.
Right. That was one more question I have here. How can I manage my own feelings if someone I know is suicidal?
Um,
I mean, the first thing to do would be how can we get you help before
right.
you do anything drastic and not good. Let's explore the options to get you help before it gets to that place.
Right.
Right.
Letting people know that it's okay to not be okay. I
Right.
think sometimes you hear somebody saying I'm suicidal. Oh no, don't do that. That's not the right method. Or people, what you got, because you don't want to minimize somebody's feelings because they've already been minimized enough, and you have to say that there's validation in how you feel. Your feelings are valid. And sometimes if you ask people what can I do to help, they may not know what you can do to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But letting them know that there is validation in how they feel, and letting them know that you're here to support. Don't tell people, oh, I know how you feel, I'm going through exactly that. No, you don't, because many times we don't. But you can say, you know what, I validate how you feel. Let you know, I may not be the right person to talk about it. Do you feel comfortable with talking to somebody? Do you feel like you want to harm yourself? And sometimes people will be honest and say, yes, I feel like I want to harm myself. Or no,
Right.
they may not be there, or they may not want to tell you that they want to harm themselves, even though they want to. You know what I'm saying? But making sure you develop a trust factor, that they know that there's somebody they can trust, because they're not going to be able to trust everybody with telling that information.
No, I I'm just saying it like from a grieving standpoint, which we talked about earlier, like where some people just have no empathy. I mean, you could grieve as long as you want, like you were saying earlier, like, oh, some people are like just move past it. How the hell can you move past it?
Yeah.
Whether you know you with any of the situations, like you lost a best friend. I mean, again, Michelle, Angela, your sons. I mean, I lost my mother suddenly. I know it's two different things, but at the end of the day, you're still grieving. It don't matter if it's 4 years, 15 years, 10 years, 1 year, and you're still going to grieve.
It's an
Grieving as the bottom line.
Nobody should be expected to grieve any certain way or for any amount of time. Every situation is different. Every person has been through their own experience.
Yep.
No one is going to receive it the exact same way, and that is to be expected, and it's okay. People need to not be judgmental is what it comes down to. And when you were mentioning what would you do for someone that committed, that were in having those ideations, one thing that crossed my mind is not turn my cell phone off at night, and even maybe push through and contact them and say, are you okay? And just let them know, I care so much about you. I'm going to set my alarm on my phone to check in with you however many times a day I need to make sure and beat into your head that you're cared for until we can get to the next step and talk to someone.
Yeah.
That's and I just have that to, and again, this is an unfamiliar subject with me, and thank you everyone for sharing and for educating me. But when it came to my personal breast cancer, it was during 2020. So everyone was isolated, everyone was busy, everyone was at home with their families, and nobody checked on me. It was just the hardest thing to drive yourself to chemo, drive yourself home, line up your pills, crawl into your deathbed, and just deal with it. And so, but I'm not making it about me. I'm just saying that it was absolutely horrible. I needed a group of friends to get together and say, hey, Tralee doesn't have anybody to talk to. Let's call her twice a day. I'm going to take noon on Tuesday and Friday at 6. And if everyone were to come together and collaborate and work together as a team to pull that person out of the dark hole, they'd be successful. It's a team effort.
Right.
So sorry that you.
Oh, thank you. But
yeah.
You never know how strong you are until you have no other choice than to be strong.
Yep.
And even in the strength that you have to display when you don't have any other choice, like it shows you just how resilient you are. It shows you sometimes where people err. It shows you what you don't want to be like. It reveals not just the strength in you, but it also reveals the ugliness in others that you don't want to emulate. And I think that that's one of the things in this particular journey that has really been like right in my face per se. And that's one of the things I know. I was when Fuji was telling me Tralee about your story, I thought about my aunt who was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer in 1987. And you know what I mean? That her situation was of course quite different, but we also think about, as an African American woman, how triple negative breast cancer is much more prevalent. And the fact that you have a warrior spirit, because you are not going to let it take you out of here, and you were not going to let it make you succumb. It was not going to let you bow down to it. And you were like, what can I do? And how to press forward. And that's why in many of the situations, that's why each of us are still here, because of a warrior spirit that's in each of us. for some reason, that God is not finished with each one of us on this particular life journey. And whatever it means for us to kind of press forward, and whatever it means for us to try to get out, whatever message that he has for us to deliver to the people. You know, people say, oh, you're so strong. Sometimes I get tired of hearing, oh, you're so strong, because I don't feel strong many times. But sometimes if you are the strength and you are the voice of the voiceless for those who can't speak, sometimes we have to pick up that mantle. It doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel right. We don't many times want to do it, but sometimes we have to be that voice, that power, that authority that speaks for those who can't and moves the needle.
Right.
Yep.
I'll say this about grieving real. Oh, go ahead. Trailer, go
No, I
ahead.
was just gonna say you are absolutely right. When it comes to, you do not know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on the phone and everybody is tired of hearing about you grieving
Yep.
for your baby,
Yep.
you're right. That tells you who's on your team and who your support system is. And it just makes you just understand that I don't have anyone else to call. I don't have anyone else to talk to. There's no other options but to figure out how to press through it. And
Yep.
when that's your only option, that's when you understand. You don't understand how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have. When you're in a position that absolutely nobody can take any weight off of your shoulders, it's on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you can that's when you understand it.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say real quick about the grieving process from my own personal experience. You will grieve until the day it's your turn to leave this earth. It'll
There
never
you
go
go.
away.
Yep. There you
You'll
go.
continue to grieve and grieve. I've had friends that passed away 40 years ago. Song will pop on the radio. Forget it. I
Yeah.
continuously, I think about them. It's just like, you have the outside scars on your skin or wherever. It leaves a scar in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
It will,
Yes.
it will always be,
Yes.
that scar will always be there. You're never going to, you can move on, but the grieving process will continue to the day you and I are ready to leave this earth.
It's not linear, and that's what people don't realize.
Yep.
Like, we have the circle of life, but there's no circle of grief. It's not like from this month to the 7th month you feel this, and then from the 7th month to the 14th month you do this. It could be that you're on the denial stage and then the anger stage, and then you go back to the denial stage, and then you go back to the anger stage, and then you have the stage of disbelief, and then, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing about grief. You don't know sometimes when it's going to hit you. It could be a song, it could be a scent, it could be, you know what I mean? It's not always the grief journey of somebody like leaving the earth. It could be grieving some particular thing. And that's the part that I think many people don't get it, because they're like, oh, I never had loss, or I never. And the thing is, but one day you will.
Right.
Because we are not all meant to stay on this earth forever. We all have an expiration date, just like milk. And at the end of that dash, when it's your time, it's your time. If we all knew, I think sometimes what our time would be, I think we would live life different, but sometimes we don't need to know that. Live life the way you're supposed to and be the right person you are now, because tomorrow is not promised. I wish my son was here for 23 years and 5 months. I wish he was here for 1 million more. I would trade anything to trade spaces with him where he's here, because I should not have had to lower him in the ground. He should be here. He should have had to lower me in the ground. And that for me will never, ever sit right with me. Never, ever sit right. So my thing is, if it means that I'm treating people with, the way that everybody should be treated. I don't care if you're a CEO. I don't care if you're somebody on the street. It does not matter to me. Everybody deserves respect. Everybody deserves that. It does not matter. And that's what we get it, oh, well, they're not this echelon or that. No, because that does not matter. You got to treat people right. Because you don't know. You got to be careful how you treat people, because you can be entertaining angels unaware. You don't know what kind of tests are put before you, where God says, these are the people I'm putting before you. I want to see how you're going to treat them.
Yep.
Because he's done this for the least of these. And that's
a
the way I
great
live.
analogy.
Yeah. Hey guys, my dog is crying right now. So I am so sorry. She needs to go potty really bad. But I wanted to thank you guys so much for all of your kind words and listening to everybody's stories. I just want to say that I'm so proud of every one of you, and I really think that you're all wonderful people, and I really, really appreciate you guys letting me tell my story. And I would love to do this again and keep our chat going and invite some other people maybe that we want to talk to. And
absolutely,
thank you. Well,
I would love to stay in touch with everybody. This is fantastic. I have to get ready to jet because I'm getting eyes because I should have been dinner already.
Right. Well, Trayley and I already talked about doing a sequel of this show already to touch on these subjects. And we love to.
Yeah,
we definitely would love to have everybody back.
Yeah, we're a half
Let us
hour
know
over
when
right
we'll
now.
make it happen for sure.
And we could keep going. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you so much for your
Yes.
vulnerability and transparency. So many people
Yes.
have benefited
Thank
from your
you.
communication tonight.
You're
Yes.
welcome. Thank you for taking your time.
Thanks. Have a good
sharing.
Christmas.
All right, take care,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
See ya.
Take care.
Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Good night.
Fuji, you done?
Just wanted to
There you go.
Ooh.
ask Mama Ringo if
my
she wanted
goodness.
to add anything.
I am just emotional getting off of this. It was just a lot. And yeah, we do need to do a part 2. And let's get someone that's a medical professional on, and let's invite our guests that were chiming in and that we're leaving messages, even those that didn't leave a message. They could come on and they could be we could leave them black out their picture if they don't want to come forward with, but if they want to share, yeah, we would love to hear it. We're getting closer to the holidays. This is the time that people are dealing with suicidal and ideations and mental health, and we want to run interference on that. We want to provide education here in this community and save lives. And again, Mike, I am so, and Ryan, thank you for sharing, because we even had this conversation just prior to starting the show tonight. Men don't have an outlet. It's uncomfortable, and men are frowned upon as though their strength is compromised. Or no, you have displayed extreme strength by coming forward. It is not stronger to keep it in your back pocket.
Right.
It's the strength is, thank you, both of you.
I want to thank you for encouraging me to, for this to be our first episode. I deeply appreciate it. And, we
good stuff.
Talk all the time and just, I really never thought about it. It's like 37 years, but you brought it to the forefront. And I deeply appreciate you for that.
Thank you. And Ryan, your story, thank you for sharing. My goodness. We're going to circle back. I hope you'll come back on when we repeat it. We got to talk more mental health. And I really appreciate you speaking about you advancing and feeling the benefits from medicine, because that's something that's another thing people don't want to talk about before it gets to suicide. Balance yourself mentally, and it even takes someone that's able to recognize that they're not, that they could use improvement. So
alternatives and solutions.
Yes.
Oh,
all right.
Well, everybody, want to thank everybody for tuning in and staying on an hour and a half watching it. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully, we make a difference in one person, 5, 10 people, whoever. Pass the word. We will be talking about these topics again. I want to appreciate, like I said, me and Trayley, aka Mama Ringo, starting our own platform as we put out, last Friday, and we're bringing it. We're going to come hard with it. Is that right, Mr.
Yeah.
Mama Ringo?
We started out with, yeah, I said we're
Start out with a
we're gonna
bang.
have some uncomfortable conversations, and that's what we did.
Well, you said it.
Nothing wrong with that.
From your mouth to God's ears. Well, Ryan, you put it out there as what you do on your when you close out your show.
I always say, practice compassion, practice empathy, have passion for what you do. Hug somebody every once in a while. You might make their day. Tell somebody you love them. You might not get a second opportunity. And for God's sakes, if you see somebody struggling in whatever fashion, whether it's being bullied, whether you know that there's something wrong, they're not right, ask questions, inquire, because you might not just be saving that life. You might be saving a multitude of lives.
Or
Perfect.
say it any better.
Mic drop.
Yep. Well,
All right.
thank
Good,
you,
Fuji.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week. God bless. Be safe. Reach out to somebody and have a good night and a good weekend.
Yes.
Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside, feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly flair, oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist, so rare. Fuji's Philly flair, we're